I have a huge problem. I actually wanted to make a video about games that I'm looking forward to because I always wanted to make top list videos, just to realize that I'm looking forward to way too many games. So that ultimately means that you will get one video per genre. And the first one is going to be my top 10 upcoming MMORPGs that you will probably be able to play pretty soonish. In order to make my content a little different from what is already out there, I'm going to do two different things. The first one is I'm going to focus on games that we are potentially going to be able to play in 2025, or at least somewhere in 2026, and not games that are just existing on paper and maybe are just a concept. So I'm putting these aside. And the second thing is, as you know me, I don't want to overhype games without questioning them. So you will also receive my concerns that I have about these games, just to spice things up a little. However, please note that in my videos, I mostly refer to my personal opinion. So I'm focusing on games that I am personally looking forward to. You might have a different opinion, which of course you could always share in the comment section. And if you like this video and the format in general, I would be happy if you would leave a like and also maybe sub to the channel, because that would help me create new videos and better content in the future. And if you want to discuss the games even further and maybe find people to play with, feel free to also join my Discord server. The link is in the video description. So let's jump right in the content. Starting with the number 10, which is Light No Fire. The reason I've put this game so low on the list is because I'm not really sure if you could really consider this game an MMO, but from the description of it, I would actually call it an MMO. Light No Fire is the next game from the creators of No Man's Sky. And if you don't know the story behind No Man's Sky, it was a game that promised insane features on release, but failed to deliver and was rated very, very low at the start. However, over the past years, the developers didn't really give up. Instead, they offered not just the features that they promised, but also way more beyond that, and truly have proven themselves. And whenever I speak about like a phoenix from the ashes type of story in the gaming industry, No Man's Sky is my prime example. Like, this game went from one of the lowest rated games to one of the most successful sandbox sci-fi games to ever exist. And every update that they actually did was free, which is crazy. And now they are working on their next game, which is Light No Fire. This is basically an open world multiplayer fantasy game with practically endless content. Instead of having an infinite number of generated planets and moons and systems like in No Man's Sky, they instead created a game world that is the size of a single real-life planet like Earth, which you actually share with other players. That means you get to explore and share the same planet with all the other players. And you will even be able to see them and interact with them, and also see all the buildings and towns that they have created. And Light No Fire aims to deliver the full sandbox experience, like exploring, building, fighting, socializing, all in a fantasy setting with different races, different fantasy creatures like dragons, which you can even fly and ride on to explore the world, and much more to discover. It's impossible to put this into a single video because I think they are aiming for generated content and potentially infinite content. The cool thing is that every time they developed something cool for Light No Fire, they tested it in No Man's Sky. And of course, creating a whole planet sounds kind of unrealistic, but they will definitely use generation tools that they used to create the endless planets of No Man's Sky. And to be fair, the planet generation in No Man's Sky is on an insanely high level already. So I'm pretty sure that this planet that we are going to explore will look fantastic. However, my concerns about the game are based on the state in which No Man's Sky was on release. Basically, that the developer is trying to take on too much in terms of new, unique systems, which might make it hard to deliver a stable game at the beginning. However, after the past years with No Man's Sky, I think they made their experiences and improved their engine far enough that my concerns are pretty unrealistic, so chances are high that we are going to see a banger of a game. Which brings us to number 9, Sword of Justice. Well, yes, it's time to go back to the wuxia genre with a game that I have both high hopes and also high concerns for. The game has already been released in China and is one of the most successful MMORPGs in this region, with over 40 million active players. Sword of Justice is an open world socializing action MMORPG in a wuxia setting within the time frame of the Song dynasty. The game world actually seems to be pretty big and features high quality graphics and dynamic weather changes and season changes. It also features a class system, so unfortunately, if you are like me and you are looking for a school-based wuxia game like Age of Wushu, this is not the one. I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. But it features action combat, which combines auto-lock with an action combat system and dodging, which many said to be one of the best aspects of Sword of Justice. The game also features a so-called neural network, which NetEase is very proud of, with currently over 100 NPCs that are able to actually remember the player, emotionally connect with them, and allow AI interaction, both in the dialogues with the player and also by fighting alongside you as a AI companion, which is their way to make the game feel more immersive to solo players and also allow solo players to clear group content without actually having to interact with other players. The game features PvE, PvP, crafting, and social activities, and is described as a social game that encourages player interaction. At first, the game gave me really high hopes to be the next Age of Wushu, but unfortunately, after doing some research, I don't expect the game to meet my expectations here. In terms of monetization, they clearly made a statement and called the game the anti-pay-to-win game, which has no pay-to-win and no autoplay. And the Chinese version actually seems to be very fair in terms of the monetization and doesn't have any autoplay. So it's sad that this has to be set in 2025, but having no autoplay is a good thing. My first big concern about the game is that it is a cross-platform game that was created for mobile first, and when I look at the gameplay, I feel like you can see that. I feel like it looks kind of more like a mobile-ish game. And my second concern is that the marketing about the game is kind of weird. Like, they post these 10-second long videos about classes or something else on their YouTube channel with almost no views, and they do these weird giveaways on Twitter with insanely high prices, and everyone says it's rigged, so it's kind of weird. But the game has been officially announced, so it is a real game, and it's very successful in China, but the global marketing is absolutely weird. But taking this aside, if you are interested in the game, they already opened the global beta test signups, so I will share the link in the video description. Check that out. My number 8 is Soulframe. Soulframe is the next upcoming game by the creators of Warframe, which was an action MMO about space ninjas and space assassins that has been around for over 12 years and is still doing well. With Soulframe, they wanted to make a game that is inspired by Warframe, but in a fantasy setting and with more Souls-like-ish combat that feels slower and more impactful and not as fast as Warframe. Because, man, Warframe felt like I took an overdose of drugs while being on an overdose of energy drinks, and Soulframe already had multiple waves of tests and content has been around for quite a while already, so you were able to check out the game on YouTube and Twitch and stuff like that. And the developers are known for trying out new things, which really paid off in the past and truly set Warframe apart from most of the other games. However, while Warframe was a mission-based game, Soulframe is an open-world game that basically allows for solo and co-op PvE. I have already joined a test in the past, and unfortunately, the game didn't really click for me. Mainly because even after like 5 or 10 hours in the game, it felt kind of the same. I didn't really unlock any new abilities and stuff like that, so it got boring over time. But I've already seen a lot of new content with new weapons and new abilities, so I hope that the release version will have a more flexible and individual combat system. But I'm concerned that if they don't include like diverse skill trees, the game might feel boring fairly quickly. Besides that, another concern of mine is the monetization, because Warframe is known for heavy pay to progress, which of course isn't necessary if you don't want to compete with others. It's a PvE game after all. But if you want to unlock any endgame content and endgame frames and stuff, you'd either have to farm so much or you just emptied your wallet. So of course, we have no information on the monetization, but we will see how Soulframe handles it. Which brings us to number 7, which is Honor of Kings World. This game is an anime-themed open-world action game in the world of Honor of Kings, which is also the reason why it's called Honor of Kings World. And Honor of Kings might be a name that you might have already heard in the past, because the original Honor of Kings is developed by Tencent and is the most successful mobile MOBA available on the market at the moment, in terms of player count, and especially very successful in the esports sector. And due to its availability on mobile, it actually has more players than League of Legends. So technically, on paper, it's the most successful MOBA in the world right now. Now, they basically pulled the Riot move and promised to create an open world game in that lore, but unlike Riot, they are almost finished. And the game looks amazing from what I've seen so far. They have already shown 4-player raids and confirmed some large-scale multiplayer modes of the game, so if it actually will be an MMO is still to be fully confirmed though, but it looks like an MMO. And it will have multiplayer, and they made some statements that they are aiming to create an MMO, so I hope it will be an MMO. Honor of Kings World features action-packed combat and a class system where you combine 2 classes in a single character, swapping between them mid-fight, and also swapping between multiple characters, which allows to create very long and unique combos and playstyles. And the bosses that they have shown so far already looked very promising and fun to fight against, and the combat also looks decent and like it will be one of the most enjoyable parts of the game. They also confirmed that the game is not going to have any pay to win and will only feature cosmetics to buy, so this is a good thing, and I really hope that they will keep their promise. However, of course, I do have some concerns, as always, and one of them is the lack of the final confirmation if the game will actually be an MMO, because otherwise it might end up like Wuthering Waves or Genshin Impact, where you mostly roam the free world solo and you can play with other people, but it's not really worth besides for a few game modes. Beyond that, another concern of mine is that the game is actually also planned for mobile, which impacts the potential complexity of the game and comes with a typical mobile audience tailored issue like multiple currencies, stamina systems, and hundreds of windows with pop-ups and claimable stuff. So I guess we will have to wait and see. But I'm pretty sure we are going to get something like that. But now we are jumping over to number 6, which is Bella Torres. This game just recently released a dev interview and lots of content, and while I've never heard of the game before, I have to admit that I'm pretty hyped about what I have seen in this dev interview so far. Bella Torres is a medieval open world adventure MMORPG with action combat. Some may actually say I'm pretty much into action combat, and that is actually true. In Bella Torres, players will have to gather resources and focus on one craftsmanship to participate in the economy of the game. And I like the fact that you actually have to focus on one job and trade in the game, which makes the whole economy feel more alive. It's also cool to note that the items that you craft in the game are actually looking better depending on your crafting mastery. So if you find a very cool looking armor, it's probably been made by someone with a very high craftsmanship in armor smithing. Players also have to choose one of 3 houses to join and work for to increase their standing within this house and influence political decisions and stuff like that. And we will have both PvE with these house members and PvP against other house members, which is pretty cool. I absolutely love faction-based PvP. It's the best type of PvP. Combat also looks and sounds pretty good and has mechanics to completely change and adjust your skills depending on your playstyle. So it's pretty similar to Lost Ark skill adjustment. However, the combat is also my first concern about the game, because while sound and the animations themselves look pretty high quality, it also looks kind of static and the character movement looks very slow, like even slower than in New World. And this could actually drastically lower the overall experience, and I really hope that they speed up the combat and go away from the idea of these static moves, because having static moves is one of the worst things that you can have in an action MMORPG. So you should not have this. I don't really know if that's true, but it seems that they have switched to action combat mid-development and they had tap targeting from the beginning, so this might be the reason why some of the skills still look very static. It's the same problem that Throne at Liberty had, so I think depending on the release date, this could still be felt on release. The game is running a beta very soon and you can sign up on Steam, which is kind of weird because initially they planned to run the beta only in Korea. So I guess let's just sign up and see if we are able to access the beta or not. I hope they will run a global beta because feedback from different regions is very important, but I'm not sure. We will see. Which brings us to number 5, and that is Ion 2. This is the successor of one of the most popular MMORPGs of all time, and they dropped a bomb with a lengthy trailer including combat and gameplay mechanics. Ion 2 will be a game with all the content that you would expect from a fully fledged MMORPG, from PvE and faction-based PvP, realm versus realm battles, crafting, mounts, exploration, raids, and much more. And the trailer already showed an insane level of graphical quality. And the game actually had a closed test in Korea already, where people were able to visit the NCSoft headquarters and got to play the game. And they signed an NDA, but some of them still decided to speak about the game on Reddit and shared some information. So I'm going to share this information with you. First of all, they confirmed that the graphical quality is insanely hype, so no negative feedback on that. They also spoke about combat, which seems to be a big upgrade to Ion 1. They called it a hybrid combination of Ion, Black Desert, and also Blade and Soul, which sounds insane to me. All of these games were absolutely amazing and very unique in terms of combat, so it sounds like a good combination. The game also features free flying for every character with their own wings, and another cool feature is that they have included a mount capture system, so you can actually technically capture almost every animal out there in the world and use them as a mount, which I think is pretty cool. You have your wings, so it's not necessary, but it's still a cool idea. And overall, they said that they were very satisfied with the test and that the game felt like a upgrade to Ion 1, which is a very good sign. Which brings us to the concerns for the game. And my biggest concern, and that was also confirmed by the testers, is the monetization. The game is published by NCSoft and they completely lost my trust with Blade and Soul, which had an atrocious monetization system, and it recently relaunched as Blade and Soul Neo, and it still had a extremely bad monetization system. They even made worse decisions like in the original game. They mentioned that they wanted to keep the pay to win in Ion 2, quote, as low as possible, but it will be present. And it was already confirmed that the game is going to have instant revives. So if you die in a dungeon, you can revive by paying money. And it will also have a stamina system that will gatekeep you from dungeon content, and you will have to pay real money to run the dungeon more often. And overall, I assume that keeping the name NCSoft in my mind, the monetization will actually be far worse than what most people expect. And that will also have a huge influence on PvP, which is a big thing in the game. So having pay to win and PvP in the same game is never a good thing. So I'm kind of hyped about the game because it just looks so good. And I'm also extremely turned off by the monetization. I'm somewhere in between. Like, I still have a small amount of hope that they actually learned from their mistakes with Blade and Soul and Blade and Soul Neo, which is fully pay to win. But if they don't change their mind, it's going to be atrocious. We will see about that. Jumping over to number 4, which is Blue Protocol Star Resonance. The original Blue Protocol was one of the PC-only anime MMORPGs that I was most looking forward to in the past, which kind of combined a Sword Art Online type of look with a Monster Hunter type of combat system. And while the original one was already released in China, Amazon Games wanted to launch the game globally, but unfortunately plans got cancelled and the game entirely shut down, even in China, as players didn't seem to enjoy the endgame and the grindy gameplay loop, and the game itself was not financially sustainable. But a few months ago, the game suddenly came back with a new name, Blue Protocol Star Resonance, brought to us by a new publisher called A+. And it was also confirmed to release globally pretty soon, but now as a cross-platform game, so including mobile. The new publisher basically took what was already created and improved it with more content and more focus on the MMORPG experience. They came up with lots of new content and made several improvements on the game, but also drastically changed combat to be more flashy and more Sword Art Online-like, anime-styled, and also easier to use, especially due to its plan of being available on the mobile devices. And just a few days ago, the game actually released in China, and people say it's far better than what the original game was, even though the original game was PC only. And they even compare it to the relaunch of Final Fantasy XIV and how much better this game was after the relaunch. Star Resonance basically offers dungeons and raids that seem to have actual mechanics to learn and master, and they also implemented the holy trinity of tank, DPS and healer, which makes group play more interesting. My concerns about the game are that I'm a little afraid that the combat feels way less impactful and less complex compared to the original version due to the game being more accessible for mobile players. And also the monetization, which seems to add a stamina system to the game and allows pay to progress, which is not as bad because there is no PvP in the game, but it still stinks. But the good news is that we are going to see for ourselves, because the game is going to release in 2025 and the closed beta recruitment starts in just a few days on July 24th. So make sure to sign up. I will put the link in the video description when the signups are live. Which brings us to the next number, which is number 3, ArcheAge Chronicles. I was a huge fan of the original ArcheAge, which was an MMORPG with targeting combat and both PvE and PvP, as well as lots of sandbox and social features. And one of its core mechanics was the option to combine 3 different classes of your choice to create a very unique class, with a total of over 220 different classes. And even though I'm not really a tap targeting enjoyer, I think that the combat in the original game was pretty fun. Besides the housing and social features, I remember so many cool player interactions. One of them was that I had to go to a different island, but I didn't have a ship. So a player was kind enough to take me there with his huge sail ship, but we got attacked by pirate players and we had to fight them off. And this was just such a cool experience. Like, it's still staying in my mind and it will stay there rent-free forever. ArcheAge Chronicles is going to be their new game, a MMORPG with an action combat system, crafting, sailing and much more, and I have to admit that it looks absolutely amazing. And while Chrono Odyssey taught us that trailers shouldn't be trusted, I think that they have proven themselves with a pretty solid first game, so I know that they have the resources to actually deliver what they have shown in the trailer. ArcheAge Chronicles is set to release in the first half of 2026, and I sure hope it does. The first ArcheAge ultimately died due to its very bad monetization system, and as always, it relaunched and failed again because they made the same bad decisions again. And to be fair, I have the same concerns about ArcheAge Chronicles. I hope this time the publisher Kakao Games won't make the same mistakes a third time. Fingers crossed. But besides that, they didn't really show too much of the whole sandbox system that the first game had to offer, and I sure hope they don't go down the Vindictus Defying Fate path and put all their work in the combat system, forgetting about what truly set the first game apart. So I really hope that they bring back all the sailing and the sandbox, the housing and stuff like that. But let's jump over to number 2, which is Where Winds Meet. You might have already expected me to list this game, but of course I am hyped about Where Winds Meet, especially since I am a huge fan of wuxia games. I think I already said that. And I've already made 2 videos about the game, so if you want to find out more about the game, just feel free to check out these videos. But if you didn't know the game, let me quickly summarize what it is. Where Winds Meet is a wuxia action RPG with Sekiro-like combat. It's a game where you basically create your own martial artist that combines weapon arts with other abilities to create your very own fighting style. The game has 2 different game modes that are both played with the same character and the same progress. And the first one is the offline mode, which offers the exploration of the open world bosses, quests, and progress for your character, and of course the main story quest line. And also even base building, which seems to be pretty good. And in this world you can play solo or together with your friends in co-op. But you can also switch to the MMO mode at any time. And within this mode you venture through the same world, but without the main story quest line. Instead you encounter hundreds of other players, gather resources, and participate in MMO content like raids, guilds, guild wars, PvP, social games, and much more. And the game is available on both PC, console, and also mobile. But trust me, it looks and feels amazing, and absolutely not like it has been made for mobile after all. Like, I still can't get my head around how this game is actually working on a mobile phone. And you really don't feel the mobile aspect of the game, besides a few UI decisions that just feel mobile-ish. It is also said to have 0 pay to win and only have cosmetics, which is pretty cool. And you can fly with your own character. He can just fly through the air without any wings, and I think it's cool. That's really cool. But unfortunately, this game is going to feature a stamina system, so you will be time gated from certain content. I mean, trust me, there is more than enough content to do that is not bound to the stamina system, so you will always have something to do, but the end game content and the raids and stuff like that is time gated by the stamina system. Where Winds Meet will release in 2025, and if you want to try the game for yourself, you can still sign up for the final global beta test that will actually run from 25th of July to 31st of July. It also will include the MMO mode. So if you want to test that, make sure to sign up right now. I will put the link in the video description. Which finally brings us to the number 1, and this is Ashes of Creation. This game is aiming to be the next big MMORPG and has raised an absurd amount of money to become exactly that by giving paid access to different alpha testing phases that are persistent and will be accessible up until the final launch of the game. And these phases were mostly meant to showcase the mechanics of the game, like the classes and the combat system, in different PvE and PvP scenarios. Ashes of Creation is aiming to reshape the MMORPG genre by going away from the classic follow this main story quest line idea. Instead, they encourage you to write your own stories through PvE and PvP interactions and truly going on a journey with your friends. That means group play and classic MMORPG feeling when moving in a party, combined with a very active and skillful tap targeting combat, lots of skills to equip at the same time, just like in classic MMORPGs, and the holy class trinity. And the game world already is pretty huge and allows for journeys that can take up to a few days. And the game also features crafting and trading and building up nodes that can become big cities over time, which is similar to the very first concept of New World. And you can do a lot of stuff like caravans with your friends to get items from node A to node B that can be attacked by other players and guilds, and much more. And beyond that, I think the mounts in this game also look pretty cool. The game is meant to have 0 pay to win or time gating of any kind, and only will offer paid cosmetics. And while the game is already in a pretty good shape, the previous test phases had some issues, like lack of content, for example, which mainly comes from the fact that the game's concept needs like a big player base to truly make sense. And paid access was kind of expensive, so the player base was pretty low. However, they are starting their next alpha phase on August 4th, which is in 2 weeks, and this is where I'm also going to check out the game for the first time, and I'm going to share my experience here on this channel. And this phase is going to reset all the progress, add a lot of new content to the game, give access to way more players by access becoming far cheaper, and they will make some major changes to allow more PvE and PvP interactions to happen. My biggest concern about the game is that it could potentially end up in an endless development cycle, just like Star Citizen, by adding more and more content, but never really closing that circle to a full game and a full release, because the paid testing access is in fact a pretty solid financial concept. I hope that I'm wrong about that though, but we are still in the alpha phase, so which means that the release could even be in 2027. But that is it about my top 10 games. Beyond that, I wanted to add some extra games to the list with a few notes that didn't make it into the top 10. And the first one is World of Jade Dynasty. And yes, I said it multiple times, I am a huge fan of wuxia games, which is why I'll make a separate video on this topic. But this game also looks extremely polished and extremely well made, and is in fact already out in China and one of the most successful MMORPGs there, both in terms of player base and financially. The game is made in Unreal Engine 5.5 and just looks absolutely amazing. And not just that, people say that it feels and plays amazing as well. However, even though they started to offer an English version in some eastern regions, a global release has never been fully confirmed. Which is also the reason why I didn't want to put it in my top 10, because I don't even know if this game is going to be released globally. But if there's ever going to be a global test or something like that, I will absolutely cover this year. The next game I wanted to talk about is Sea of Remnants. Is another game that recently caught my attention, and it's a pirate game with a very unique art style and turn-based combat. However, what I didn't expect is that the game actually has the MMO tech and seems to be an MMO after all, which is interesting because it combines active ship combat and also turn-based ground combat, and I'm really wondering how this will turn out to function as an MMO. I didn't get to test the game yet. Whenever I do know more about the game and how the MMO aspect of it functions, I will cover this game on this channel. Next up, we have Apogea, which is another MMORPG in a classic pixelated style that seems to embrace the non-pay-to-win classic challenging MMORPG ideology from older games like RuneScape or Tibia. They already had a test on Steam, and unfortunately I missed it, so I wasn't able to test the game, so I can't really tell myself if this is my type of game, especially since I'm a little overstimulated by all the action combat games out there and never really enjoyed classic combat systems from older games. However, somehow the game catched my attention. I think it looks interesting and I can't wait to test it out myself. And if I get to do so, I'm going to share my experience in another video. And the last game I wanted to mention is Star Citizen. Oh boy. Most of you will know this game already because Star Citizen is trying to be the next generation sci-fi simulation MMO gaming experience. And to be fair, its engine already has so many insane features that I have never seen in a game before. The game wants to give you the opportunity to be whoever you want to be in a sci-fi setting. A trader, a miner, even a pirate, but most importantly, they are trying to deliver a game that has never been made before, in a graphical environment that no other sci-fi game comes even close to. And in this game, you can actually get up from bed, walk out of the building, go to the subway station, drive to the hangar, enter your ship by actually climbing inside and getting into the driver's seat, and start the engine, fly around the whole planet or leave the atmosphere and fly to another planet, enter the atmosphere and land in another town. And all of that without any loading screens, combined with an insane sound design and insane graphics. However, of course, that comes with a downside, which is the optimization. The game runs pretty poorly, even on high-end systems, and also an insane amount of bugs. The game has been announced 13 years ago, and they have made an absurd amount of money with their Kickstarter campaign, and the game is still not finished. You can buy the game and you can play it for years already, but it doesn't really help you understand what you actually have to do in the game, and it's also just so packed with bugs and issues. Like, I tried to play the game like 2 years ago and I just got stuck in an elevator like 10 times and I didn't even get to start my ship. And some people actually say that the paid access testing phase is so financially lucrative that the game is potentially never coming out. But we will see about that. I still have hope somehow, and I plan to revisit Star Citizen soon, and I'm going to share my experience in another video. And to round things up, I wouldn't be me if I wouldn't make another weird mention. So here's my weird mention. I'm actually looking forward to 3 very specific games on Roblox. As some of you might know, I'm a huge anime fan, and there are like 3 specific Roblox MMOs that I can't wait to actually play. One of them is Holy War X, which is a game inspired by 7 Deadly Sins, and you get to fly around, you have PvP and PvE, you have naval combat, and so much more content in this game. And for a Roblox game, it just looks so cool. The second one is Rel Seas, which is going to be a One Piece MMO with actual factions, which are the pirates and the marines. and you have haki and so much more, like again offering PvP, PvE, naval combat, transformations, and so much more. And lastly, I'm also waiting for Project Slayers 2, which is the successor of Project Slayers 1, which was a Demon Slayer Roblox game with an open world and PvP and PvE, which was really cool. Like, you could become a demon or a slayer, and both factions fought against each other. And the second game is going to build upon that and just make a better version of this game. And I spent so much time in the first game, so I'm looking forward to the second one. But the problem about these 3 games is that they offer paid access to test phases. Again, a financial, very lucrative idea. And it feels like they are just running test phase over test phase and never really coming out because they are earning money with these test phases. I hope they will come out soon. I can't wait, but I thought that these games are going to release in 2024. Now we have 2025, still no sights of release dates, so no idea when these games will ever come out. I hope sooner than later. So that's the end for this video. Let's come to a conclusion. I know I didn't include Vindictus Defying Fate, and I also didn't include Chrono Odyssey, but to be bloody honest, I've tried both of these games and made a video about them, and I just didn't really enjoy what they've offered so far. Like, of course, that might change in the future, that might change upon release, but for now, my hype about these 2 games is pretty low at the moment. And I also know that there are some other big games on the horizon, like the Riot MMO or like the Lord of the Rings MMO by Amazon Games. But let's be real, these games are so early in concept phase that we are not going to see them in maybe the next 5 to 10 years. So we are going to talk about these games when they start to be relevant. But now I am curious about your thoughts. Which of the games that I mentioned would you like to play? And is there any other MMO that you are looking forward to and I didn't mention in my list? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, I would love to discuss any games with you guys. And if you want to watch one of my other videos that you potentially might have missed, you can find one here. I just linked one right here for you. You can just click on it and check it out. It's that easy, actually. And I hope you enjoy it, of course. It's I put a lot of work in my videos. But if you have something else to do, thanks for checking by and see you next time.